unemployed gamer here. How's everybody doing? Let me turn on the music a little bit. It's a little bit high. Anyways, today we're actually not gonna do video games. We're gonna do music, punk rock to be exact. Punk rock is my favorite kind of music. If you already know me, if you didn't know, well now you know. And it was hard to pick the albums I wanted in here, but I decided to just keep it down to 10. So I'm doing my top 10, and I'm sure I'm going to be missing a lot, but these are the ones that I got from my head right now, from my heart, the ones I remember. So I'm going to improvise pretty much everything. It's coming from my heart, and I hope you enjoy this episode. It's not gaming, but these are my favorite punk rock albums. Here we go. Follow me. Number 10, TSOL, Dance With Me. And this album was released in 1981. Actually, I was going to say 82. And it was a great album. People call it gothic punk. I guess a little bit darker than your usual punk rock. But for me, punk is punk. All the songs in this album are great. That's why they're in this list. And Jack Grissom is awesome. He's a cool frontman. As you can see here, earlier footage of him. Some of my favorites are Code Blue, Sounds of Laughter, and of course Silent Scream, which is probably my favorite on the album. TSOL are awesome, super awesome. Number 9, Adolescence. It is simply just called the Adolescence, but it's also known as the Blue Album. And this album was released in 1981. To me, it's a masterpiece. Every single track, it's a treat. Very raw, it's very heavy. And people hate when I say this on a punk rock album, but to me, it's beautiful. And the singer, Tony, he has a lot of energy, so much passion. One of the greatest bands ever. I've seen them live, and this album is definitely one of my favorites, and I recommend it. Songs to look for on this album, I mean, all of them are great, but these are my favorites. Amoeba, The Kids of the Black Hole, and Rip It Up. But this whole album is full of classics. You'll love them. Check them out. Number 8, Misfits, Walk Among Us. It was released in 1982, and what an album. I mean, what I like the most about the Misfits are the melodies and the lyrics. You know, they're inspired by horror movies, and I'm a big horror movie fan. So Glenn Danzig, the singer and writer, obviously became one of my favorites. And it doesn't hurt that he sounds like a mixture of evil Presley or an evil Jim Morrison, if that makes sense. But these are one of the most melodic albums out there for punk rock. To this day, I mean, I still love the Misfits. I'm a Glenn Danzig era only, but this album is awesome. Recommend it. And songs to look for on this one: Mommy, Can I Go Out and Kill Tonight? Of course, Skulls, and one of my all-time favorites, Astro Zombies. But keep in mind, this whole album is amazing, but these are the ones to look out for. Anyways, this was number 8. Number 7, Minor Threat, simply called The Complete Discography. This album was released in 1984 as a compilation, obviously. And I have to put it in here. I mean, even though it's a compilation, it deserves to be here because it's a masterpiece. It was ahead of its time. I mean, Minor Threat is considered to start the movement for hardcore punk, and of course the straight edge movement, you know, so they didn't do drugs and whatnot. But anyways, the album changed pretty much my life and my friend's life, you know, like it was very fast. It was something very different for me. It was fast, it was hardcore. The frontman and singer Ian MacKaye, little trivia, moved on to Fugazi years later. But this band is awesome. I love it, and this album is great from start to finish. Very fast, keep that in mind. So songs to look for are Filler, I Don't Want to Hear It, and of course the classic Out of Step. Minor Threat deserves to be on number 7. Number 6, Dead Kennedys, Fresh Fruit for Rotten Vegetables. And Fresh Fruit was released in 1980. And I'm going to put it real simple. It's another masterpiece. You're not going to skip any song, any tune, however you want to say it. It's powerful, very raw, and it's thanks to Jello Biafra and his writing, his singing. He has very sarcastic lyrics, very political as well. The guitar riffs, wow, they're great. I think it was kind of first of its kind back in the day. They were very electrifying guitar riffs, you know. Dead Kennedys is still one of my favorite bands of all time. And I still follow Jello Biafra. And he's still one of the coolest singers and frontman of any punk band out there. Check this album out. It's definitely a game changer, life changer. Call it what you will. And the songs to look out for on this album is Kill the Poor, California, Over Alleys, and of course the classic Holiday in Cambodia. Dead Kennedys deserve to be on my number 6 of all time. Number 5, The Sex Pistols. Never mind the bollocks. Here's the Sex Pistols. And this album was released in 1977, believe it or not. Considered one of the pioneers of punk rock. And honestly, you listen to it, I can see why. It's brilliant. I love the Sex Pistols, and this album really, really pumps me up. It's full of energy, a lot of emotion from the singer Johnny Rotten, you know. I can never have enough of this album. And just so you guys know, Johnny Rotten did go out to form Public Image after he left the Sex Pistols. But check this album out. It's going to change your life. It's full of a lot of rock and roll. And for its time, I mean, it's definitely a revolutionary. Pioneer. I mean, I don't like debating who started punk, but definitely these guys were one of the first. Songs to look for on this album: Pretty Vacant, Anarchy in the UK, and my favorite, Bodies. Yeah. Number 4, Circle Jerks, Group Sex. Group Sex was released in 1980, and it's also considered one of the first hardcore punk albums out there. It really changed my life. The singer Keith Morris used to be the frontman for Black Flag, and as a result, he created this band, Circle Jerks. And their album debut was genius. It only lasts 15 minutes, but honestly, it's probably gonna be the best 15 minutes of your life. I'm not exaggerating. It is freaking awesome. Another beauty. I like to call it the Sgt. Pepper, of punk rock. Every song hits you that hard, and the style of singing of Keith is kind of like Johnny Rotten, you know, but it fits so perfect. It's a masterpiece. Song you want to look out for: Eyes Want Some Skank, Back Against the Wall, and Red Tape. Number 3, Germs, G.I., Germs Incognito. This album was released in 1979, believe it or not. And the reason I put the Germs in a higher list, this album was one of the first albums I listened to. This is basically one of the first bands that introduced me to punk rock. And the minute I listened, I couldn't stop listening, basically. You know, I couldn't let it go. Darby Crash for me was like a poet. His lyrics were awesome. The guitarist is one of my all-time favorites, Pat Smear. And yes, he went on to go play with Nirvana and now with the Foo Fighters. That's how good he is. This album was great from start to finish. Very raw, super powerful. The guitars are so heavy. It's amazing. Very important in my life. And songs to look out for: Lexicon Devil. I'm going for the newest one, and Manimal. You won't regret it. This band it's amazing, and it deserves to be on number 3 for me. Check them out. Come on, I dare you. Number 2, Wipers. Is This Real? And this album was released in 1980. I learned from this album from Kurt Cobain because he did covers of Wipers. So he said it was one of his favorite bands. So I checked them out. I'm glad I did. It's a masterpiece. I really recommend this album. It's still one of my all-time favorites because I didn't put it number 1. But it's a beautiful album. And the singer and guitarist Greg Sage has a real unique style of singing and playing guitar. And that also caught my attention during this whole album. All the songs have great melodies, by the way. They're very melodic from beginning to end. And this album is called Is This Real? And it's funny because I remember listening to this album and I kept saying to myself, is this real? Is this real? And I'm not joking. This album is real good. Very underrated too, in my opinion. I think it deserves more praise that it usually gets. I love it. One of my all-time favorites. Songs to look out for. It's gonna be Mystery, Don't Know What I Am, or Wait a Minute. Beautiful songs. Recommend the Wipers for sure. Is This Real? Number 1, The Ramones. Simply is called Ramones. This album was released in 1976. You heard that right. I'm sure this album changed a lot of people's lives, like mine. 1976, people. They were playing this in 1976. That's even a year earlier than Sex Pistols. The Sex Pistols actually listened to them and they got inspired to create their band. And I'm sure a lot of bands did after listening to this album. For me, this album is the greatest of all time. It's ahead of its time as well. It's beautiful, beauty to my ears. These guys were unique. Even the Ramones themselves had their own style. Johnny's guitar playing, Joey singing. Dee Dee's lyrics, for instance, on the drumming from Tommy, very basic, but then again, they all have their signature. This album is great from the minute you put the first track all the way to the end. I remember taking off my headphones and I had goosebumps. It really changed my life. It's a life changer. So for me, the Ramones had to be number 1 on my list. They're the real kings of punk rock, in my opinion. Every single song I love, but the songs to look for on this one, we're gonna go for Havana Affair, Today Your Love, Tomorrow the World, and Judy is a Punk. The Ramones take the list for my number 1 album of all time for punk rock. Rest in peace, Ramones, all of you. Thank you for giving us such amazing music. And I'm sorry I got excited, but I love this album so much. I respect it so much. I gotta, if you never listened to it, you have to. I know you've heard of the Ramones, but you gotta listen to this album. Anyways, that was my number 1. That is all for my favorite punk albums of all time. My top 10 to be exact. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe. Tell me which one's your favorite album. It doesn't have to be punk rock, of course. Any album you recommend, definitely I'm going to listen to it. For now, I'm just going to tell you one thing. Get busy living or get busy dying. And as always, I hope you choose the first option. And remember, all you need is music. And punk rock. And I'm going to leave you with a little bit of history of my younger days of punk rock. Peace.